Well, as you know, I did not release any videos recently this past weekend. Well, maybe one. But however, this whole thing with the wrestling I've been following has been a little stranger for me. But however, I decided, you know what? I'm going to cover what really happened in 205 Live, New Japan Strong with the finals of the New Japan Cup, and of course, the recent pay per view by Impact Wrestling. Rebellion. Did we see a double crown champ? Well, and also some news updates so all of you can follow along what's been going on. So all of that will be reviewed, discussed about on this episode of the Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to Deleted Wrestle Zone. All things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I'm your host J-Rod here. So let's begin with 205 Live. As you know, there's only two matches in this type of event. So let's begin with the first one, which is a tag team match between the Bollywood Boys versus 205 Originals, Ari Davari and Tony Nese. As you know, these two have always been the two members remaining from the original lineup of the Cruiserweight division. This time they take on the Bollywood Boys. Now, I've always been picturing the Bollywood Boys would get somehow a victory here and there, but recently they've been really getting better ever since they've been teaming with Everrise, calling themselves Rise, which is a very unique name. But you would have assumed from this moment in this particular match that it was going to be in the favor of the Bollywood Boys. But however, it did not. It kind of ended with, of course, Nice and the Vari winning the match due to the fact that they have good chemistry and, of course, they've known each other since the start of 205 Live, and that's always been like that. And I think both of them were part of the Cruiserweight Classic that took place a couple years back. But thanks to the work, it did allow for um, Tony Nese to pick up the victory. I don't remember which of the Bollywood Boys was pinned, but it did say a stated message that the 205 Live Originals are still strong. No matter who are the newcomers, they will not tolerate them taking their spots. Now, as you know, the 205 Live has always been a cruiserweight type of division most of the time. I mean, I don't know what was the significance from the very beginning to have the cruiserweight title go to NXT. I felt they should have changed the coloring on that one, but however, they did acknowledge the new champion Kushida, who won the title against Santos Escobar in a open challenge. So we're yet to see Kushida make appearances at 205 Live because, as you know, he can put his title on the line at 205 Live. Don't know when will that happen, but I'm assuming they probably will find a much worthy opponent to take him on. Now, the main event was, in fact, August Gray versus Ashante Diadonis. Now, this was another interesting match. As you know, if you guys follow 205 Live, August Gray has been making a lot of headways, being recognized as a good competitor. But however, recently it's been revealed that Arya Davari is interested in August Gray. So, as you know, it made no sense because if you follow the story, it kind of was like, wait a minute. If he's an interest in August Gray, he was amongst the 205 originals who didn't like the fact that he could be stealing his spot. That is also true. Now, I think they're going with a different story where if you guys been following Impact, Sammy his eyes set about Trey Miguel, about his lack of passion. And That's going to be discussed later in this episode. But I did like how um, August Gray wants to do things on his own, but however, because he was distracted by the appearance of Arya Davari, it did cost him his match against Adonis. And of course, Arya Davari told him, "You should have done what I told you to." That's the last thing that August Gray would do. Now, it wouldn't surprise me that we would see a feud between these two where Arya wants him to join him to be his protege, and I'm assuming that August Gray will be that guy who says no. So I'm expecting that somewhere down the line. So we'll see what happens in the upcoming weeks in 205 Live. So let's move on with New Japan Strong. Okay, so we got New Japan Strong. Right now we're at the end of the New Japan Cup. As you know, we have the finals. It's going to be Tom Lawler versus Brody King. This was one of those matches you know you got to pay attention. But there are other good matches they did post it out on this one that they booked. So the first match that was put out was Chris Dickinson and JR Kratos of Team Filthy taking on Clark Connors and TJP. Now, this is one of those matches it was really good to watch. Now, not because I say so, it's because there are a lot of factors in this one. As you know, Clark Connors has been the favorite young lion that many of the fans have talked about, and that's practically why. Now, there was a lot of good ways in this particular match it went on because there was a moment in this where you saw Clark Connors was about to put JR Kratos in the Boston Crab. Now, you ask me, is he able to put that in his size? I don't know because we've seen over the years how wrestlers with smaller size are able to pick up huge guys. Like we cannot forget like guys like Hulk Hogan, what he did with Andre the Giant, Total Package, Lex Luger. I forgot who. There was this one huge guy that he picked up. I don't remember, but that is one of those things. But however, it did not end this way. It did allow for Chris Dickinson to pick up the victory for his team in this tag team match. So he and JR Kratos won the match. Now, the next match, we had a debut of someone you may have heard of in the wrestling world if you guys are fans of the catch wrestling style of wrestling. We got Wheeler Yuta taking on Rocky Romero. Now, this is a very unique match. Now, as you know, if you guys have been fans of Rocky Romero, you can tell he has been working on some of the catch wrestling style because that's what he's been doing. Because he has used one particular finisher move to pick up victories over time, and that move was the armbar. Now, I wasn't sure if Rocky Romero was able to apply this because Wheeler Yuta is one of those wrestlers that it's already been out there. I've seen Wheeler Yuta participate at the Ring of Honor Pure Championship Gauntlet that they just recently had, and of course he was involved. I think he was a member. I'm not sure 100% if he was a member of Catchpoint, which is the faction that was involved in the Evolved. So I'm kind of like trying to remember if he was ever part of that, which hopefully he was because there were other peoples in that involved if you've been fans of that particular faction. But it was a good match. I have to say a lot of groundwork, which is something you may have seen over time. But I kind of did not expect is Rocky picking up the victory because I would have assumed as someone who's paid attention to a guy like Wheeler Yuta that he was going to win. But no, Rocky Romero was able to pick up the victory and put Yuta in the armbar, which was good. It did allow him to win the match. So I was surprised, but however, hopefully this is not the end of seeing Wheeler Yuta. I would love to see him back. Now we get to the main event, which was the New Japan Cup USA Finals. It's Tom Lawler versus Brody King, and this one had no shenanigans. But however, in this particular match, Tom Lawler was trying to use his head. Now, you ask yourself as a wrestling fan, how can Tom Lawler overcome a guy who's big like Brody King? Well, there's other ways that he used. He was smart enough to take him outside to ensure he was going to win his matches. So his match. But however, he did exploit that Brody King hurt his hand, and that pretty much played it out. So I was amazed how this whole thing was. I was kind of like pulling for Brody King because he deserves to be recognized. I think he might have participated in a lot of the New Japan shows. I have to say he's one of those people that many fans would like to see over, but it did not end that way. It did allowed for Tom Lawlor to win. And Tom Lawlor, of course, did stated that he will be the guy to win and become the first ever strong openweight champion. So he told everybody, told you so, I was going to win the whole thing. However, in post match, when he was making that particular phrase, he called out for any challengers in the back. But, however, someone did respond it, but not in the way Tom Lawlor would expect. This became a very interesting challenge. This challenger is coming from his group, Chris Dickinson, and it was so surprising that it was him. Now, you could say I thought they were part of the same team. True, but remember, in certain story-wise, they're saying there are no friends in wrestling, in the wrestling business. But it doesn't take the hurt to see one of your own team members challenge you for the title. I think this was the last thing Tom Lawlor expected. But however, this I have to say would be a very interesting match to follow. I don't know when that will happen, but please, New Japan, book it. So that's pretty much it. What's happened in New Japan? We got a new champion for the strong openweight title. So we'll see what happens if we will see Chris Dickinson challenge Tom Lawlor for the title. So let's move on right now with the latest pay-per-view by Impact Wrestling, Rebellion. Okay, so we got the latest pay-per-view by Impact Wrestling, Rebellion. This is one of those events that you got to pay attention, but not to mention the main event, which is title versus title. The AEW title will be on the line, and also the Impact World title, and also the TNA World title. But that will be the main event to be focused on at the end of this. So let's start from the very first match. The opening match was a three-way X Division title match between TJP, Josh Alexander, and Ace Austin. Now, this whole thing began ever since Ace Austin became once again the X Division champion. TJP has been trying to get his title back, but all of a sudden we have Josh Alexander, who's now been focusing on the X Division title. But those who've been fans of the X Division title probably question, why does he need to be in this? Has nothing to do with him as a high flyer. It doesn't matter because he does fit the parameter, even though he is a different type of wrestler. Now you keep in mind, look at Drew Gulak. He is a cruiserweight competitor, but he doesn't do high flying. He's mostly catch wrestling. So that kind of fits out in its own perfect way. But I did like how this match was going because this is one of those things where, okay, Ace Austin doesn't need to be pinned in order to lose a title. That's always been the table question there. I mean, Josh Alexander could win by pinning TJP, or TJP could pin Josh Alexander without pinning Ace Austin. So it works out pretty well. So, but of course, there's the outside factor, which is Madman Fulton, who's always by the side of Ace Austin. So practically, that's what's been going on. But I did not expect how this was going to win. It did allow for Josh Alexander to win the match. So he is now the new X Division champion. But there is no doubt in my mind that Ace Austin will cash in at some point the rematch clause for the X Division title. So we'll see what happens in this coming Impact Wrestling show on Thursday. Now the next match, we were expecting a 8-man tag team match. One side we have James Storm, Chris Sabian, Willie Mack, and of course Eddie Edwards taking on Violent by Design. But however, Eric Young is unable to participate in this particular event. Now you probably ask why. Well, if you guys been following, he recently got injured. All of these shows were already pre-taped. They've been already recorded like probably a couple weeks ahead of time. But however, the replacement was someone that really kind of like was a big surprise for all of us. Eric Young's replacement was none other than W. Morrissey, also formerly known as, some of you may have known him from WWE as Big Cass. Now you probably ask yourself, how did he was able to get an impact? There's a logical. Now, if you guys did see when Big Cass came his return not too long ago, he did participate at a wrestling event with Doc Gallows. So his relationship with Doc Gallows might have influenced him enough to get him a opportunity to participate in Impact Wrestling. But it's still unclear whether if he's fully signed with the company or it's just maybe a one-off. I don't know. But seeing him there kind of changes things because you look at who he's teamed up with, that kind of changes things. But of course, you got to give the spot to Morrissey winning the match. But does this mean that he's now going to be a full-time member of the Impact Wrestling roster? Well, I don't know. But we'll see what happens in the upcoming weeks on Impact. Next match, we have two former friends facing off. Brian Myers, the so-called professional wrestler, taking on, he's always ready, Matt Cardona. As you know, this particular match kind of, you can tell the story where Brian Myers accused Matt Cardona of chasing his coattails and all that, but no, Matt Cardona said, look, it was just a coincidence that I just got signed here, which we know that happens a lot. But the match kind of went in sideways. I'm assuming because I don't know if this was actually part of it. There was a moment where Matt Cardona tried to do the, I don't know what they call that move where he jumps on the opponent and bam, that it kind of landed right there and he hurt his knee. I'm not sure if that's where he ended it because, of course, as you know, Brian Myers claims he's professional, but he's not. He's not professional, and it did allow him to win the match in every way possible. Now, it was later interviewed that Tony Khan was going to be there to attend the main event, but he didn't come alone. He brought Tony Schiavone, who is the one of the commentators, and of course Jerry Lynn. But he also brought a very famous referee that we know, and of course Scott D'Amore decided, okay, I'm happy you guys are here. But he did have the only referee that could be the one in the match, and this one, it's kind of very funny. If you guys know this, the referee who will be main eventing for the title versus title was Brian Hepner. Now you guys know who his dad is, Earl Hebner, who we've known him throughout the years. But you may know about the history that Aubrey Edwards about her wrestling name as a referee. She was known as Girl Hepner, which was very unique. But Scott D'Amore did allow, okay, we can use two referees. Brian Hebner will be the officiate on the ring while what's his name, Aubrey will be outside. So that pretty much how this is going to be. This is what's going to be one of those interesting matches. For a fact it's going to have a good impact. Now the next match is another title match. This is for Knockouts Tag Team titles. Now, as you know, Jazz came back to participate in the Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament. They decided to face them back in what was it? Sacrifice. No success. But however, because of Fire and Flavor's disrespectful attitude towards Jazz in her retirement ceremony, Scott D'Amore made the decision that, you're going to put your titles on the line on Rebellion and against Jordynne Grace and Jazz. But however, Jazz did kept up to her that she's going to retire. But however, she did tell Jordynne she has the perfect partner. Now, we didn't know who could it be. I mean, it could have been a number of other people that we would have thought of. But however, I have to say they picked the right person, and that person was Rachel Ellery. So that's kind of played out. But I have to say I like the chemistry with Jordan and Rachel. They're like two powerhouses in every way to win this match. Now, you would have assumed that somehow Fire and Flavor were going to retain the titles by trying to use some other antics or trying to have each other's backs impossible, but this time no. But however, they did, both Jordan and Rachel had a factor in their lives, and that factor is Jazz being in their corner. Now, technically, she's retired as a wrestler, but officially, that doesn't mean she cannot act as a manager. I have to say she did play out that role nicely, and I don't think Fire and Flavor like that. They wish they had a manager like Jazz, but you should know they were the ones who disrespected her 2 weeks ago. So, but I was happy how this match ended. I did not expect that it was going to be Rachel to pick up the victory. I would have assumed it was Jordan, but I would say Rachel picked up the victory pretty well. As you know, Rachel previously was involved with AEW's for the women's wrestling tournament, tag team tournament with Dasha Gonzalez, which was they lost in the first round. But of course, before that she was involved with NXT until they let her go. But it's great to see her in Impact. So now her and Jordan become the new Knockouts tag team titles, and you can rest assured we will see Fire and Flavor cash in their rematch to get those titles back. So that is something you know for a fact it's gonna happen. Now, this next match kind of told a very interesting story. This is the last man standing match between Sammy Callihan and Trey Miguel. Now, this whole feud began since the return of Trey Miguel. Sammy Callihan began to question Trey Miguel's motives, saying that he lacks passion. And of course, nobody questions Trey Miguel's passion. This is one of those matches where Trey has to prove himself that he doesn't lack passion, according to Sammy. But it was a great match. I mean, you can tell that Sammy put up every stop possible to ensure he was going to win. But Trey keeps getting back up. But I think the one scarier moment is when he picked him up. He had the table up, and you can see the table stands when it's upside down. He got slammed right in the back. That would have broken him in half. I'm like, oh man, that is crazy. But I have to say, this match showed Trey Miguel that he does have passion and stop questioning about it. I have to say, but the one moment is, you thought that Sammy Callihan had everything under control, but it didn't. It did allow for Trey to get up and Sammy stay down at the count of 10. So Trey beat Sammy in the last man standing. But however, do we think this feud is going to continue? Well, I'm not sure, because I know for a fact that Trey has other goals in mind. I know one of them, he probably would love to get a shot of the X Division title, because that's one title that he should have been participating to get, but there's no doubt he will. Now, this next match is for the Impact World Tag Team titles. This is between the Good Brothers taking on Finjuice. This one I wasn't too much excited for, because the thing is this: I think we're seeing now the partnership between all three different promotions with AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling happening. I just don't know what to make of it. But it was a good match, because it did tell the story how the Good Brothers were saying that we were too soft on you guys when we wrestled you. And they admitted it. But however, will they have the ability to be that team, like saying, okay, all funds are over. We're taking back what belongs to us. And that kind of fits into them. But hell, they even put up all the stops to Good Brothers. But it was still not enough, because, of course, Finjuice, one-time Young Boys, now becoming men, defeated them once again and retaining the titles. But the real question is, how would the Impact Wrestling roster feel about the Good Brothers not returning the tag titles? So there has to be a team that will try to dethrone Finjuice. So I can't wait to see how this is going to have like a impact on this coming Thursday. So I can assure you that it's going to be a very interesting to follow. Now the next match is the semifinals. We have the Knockouts Championship between Tennille Dashwood and Deonna Purrazzo. But Deonna Purrazzo brought Kimberly and Susan along, while Tennille brought Caleb with the K. Now, you would have assumed in every aspect that maybe there was a chance that Tennille could win because, she has Caleb with the K. But however, that was the way I saw Tennille try to put up every stop possible. Now, she had the match won, but if it wasn't for Kimberly and Susan, Caleb with the K tried to help, but he got taken out. But it did allow for Deonna to win and allowing her to retain the title. But however, while they were beating Tennille, a former knockout champion and also knockouts tag team champion returned. I'm talking about Taylor Wilde. So this is going to be an interesting. Now Deonna could go out and say that she's happy that that the age of the virtuosa continues. But however, I'm not sure if she's ever faced someone like Taylor Wilde before. So we'll see what happens this coming Thursday. Now we get to the main event, title versus title, the AEW World Title and the Impact slash TNA World Title. Everybody in Impact are rooting for Rich Swann, so they're hoping that he doesn't fit. But of course, you got to remember Don Callis continues to play the mind games, One Wing Angel more times over. Now, you probably ask yourself, how many times has Rich Swann escaped the One Wing Angel? In this particular match, it was only 2. But I have to say, it was a very clean match because, as you know, in Kenny's corner, he had the Good Brothers by his side. Rich Swann had um, Eddie Edwards and Willie Mack by his side. But there was a moment where Kenny used the referee and knocked him out. He was about to use the chair on Rich Swann, but all of a sudden, Aubrey Edwards stopped him. And, I think Kenny was a little frustrated knowing that you're supposed to be by my side. Just because I'm AEW ref doesn't mean I have to play by your rules. Basically, Aubrey Edwards is the one who calls it fair, even if you question her. You can ask that to Jericho, if you guys remember, during that match between Kenny Omega and Jericho at the first Double or Nothing pay-per-view. So that's pretty much the part that makes it fun. But however, I didn't know how this was gonna end, but it did end once again with the One Wing Angel having Kenny Omega win the TNA and the Impact World Title. So now he is the collecting the belts. But the real question now is, what's the fallout gonna be now that Impact Wrestling, that the world title is now in the hands of Kenny Omega? I have that distinct feeling that Moose is gonna come out and tell the entire roster it should have been him because A, he's a lot faster, bigger, and stronger than Kenny. I have to say it's gonna be, if they pull that off with that story, that is something I definitely, definitely would like to see. Of course, Don Callis is not gonna tolerate Moose because Moose calls himself the god of wrestling. But Don Callis saying, no, you're not. You're nothing compared like Kenny because he's far more better. So we just gotta wait and see what's gonna happen in the upcoming weeks in Impact Wrestling. As you know, Kenny not only holds both the AEW and the TNA and Impact Wrestling title, he also has the AAA Mega Championship. Real question is, which title is next? There's those that believe that he may be going for the NWA World title and the IWGP World Heavyweight title. That we gotta pay attention if that ever comes true, because we do know that many of the wrestlers that Thunder Rosa did come out in from NWA going to AEW. We don't know if we could see a partnership coming up between them. I know that Nick Aldis did commented like, why should they work with them? That they could focus on their own. Like, I mean, this is back. We're like I said, we're going back to the territory areas, but we'll talk about that at another point. But I'm gonna give you guys some news updates right now. Okay, so here's some news updates for all of you. This is coming straight up from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Don't know if these particular shows were supposed to be aired, but New Japan announced because there was a state emergency in Tokyo that 3 of their shows in the May events from the 8th, the 10th, and 11th will be canceled. Now they didn't specify what it was, but to me, I'm assuming maybe they're dealing with another wave of the coronavirus. I'm not sure. You know, they didn't specify it, but whatever it is, they did state it to their fans in Japan. They will get their refunds and all of that. So that is good news from their part. Now, this next news update, this has become one of those questionable things here on this that we need to talk about. Apparently, there was a Lucha Libre event that took place here in Southern California. It was sort of organized by Alberto Del Rio. Now, however, there's been questions about him being involved in this one, organizing it. Those who may or may not know, Alberto Del Rio is waiting trial due to a kidnapping and sexual assault charge. So, but he never participated in the event itself. He did organize it. Many people question why did that, because however it was revealed Pentagon and Brian Cage participated in this event. But one person, somebody who probably you guys are tired of me hearing him reveal, but I always put it out because you definitely need to know what's going on. One person questioning this is Joey Ryan. Now, as you know, this year there was an event saying Wrestling for Women's charity. Joey Ryan was involved in this one, but apparently this one was kept quiet. All of this, so he was questioning the hypocrisy about it. Now, he's saying, where does the line draw with Tony Khan? Tony Khan pulled his wrestlers out of that event, but he didn't have the audacity to pull out his guys from this one, where Alberto Del Rio is going to trial for kidnapping and sexual assault. So it makes perfect sense. Now, I'm not saying I take Joey Ryan's side. I kind of agreed in a sense of a way, because who would want to associate themselves with people like that? I mean, I don't know if you guys would do that too, but we need to look at other reasons why it's not a big deal. Now, if it's not a big deal for some people, maybe because, okay, yes, he is waiting trial for the charges on kidnapping and sexual assault, but Joey Ryan is the one who has a reputation that that was destroyed, because of course we do know what happened to him. So I have to say I agree with Joey Ryan's claim, but however, we need to look at what are the reasons. If there is a comparison, like, why did Tony Khan allowed 2 of his talent to participate in this event, this Lucha Libre event that was presented by Alberto Del Rio, then we should understand what were the real reasons why. If Tony Khan wasn't allowed none of his guys to participate in that one event with Joey Ryan, then why Alberto Del Rio? I know that there's been talk about him many times over, about his attitude, but hopefully down the line we do get answers on this one about his involvement with this event. But for now, I'll just leave it as it is. But keep that in mind. We should question it. I mean, I'm not saying we agree with Joe that we should side with Joey, but we can agree on him in certain aspects on the hypocrisy on this. Like why Tony Khan said yes to them, but no to him. So that kind of explains it. But let's just sleep on that right now and just save it at another time. But for now, I'll see you guys the next episode. Coming up, I got more on the road to Wrestling Dudaku and of course AEW Dark Elevation. And from then on, we'll move forward with more stuff. But I'll see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So goodbye. Mwah, and have a nice day. Bang.